Because I grab the mic and try to say, yes, y'all. They try to take it and say that I'm too small. Cool. Because I don't get upset. I kick a hole in the speaker, pull a plug, then I jet. What's up, my people? This is ShowBizz the Adult. Alright, man, look. An E-F-F-E-C-T. A smooth operator correctly. Oops. Alright, man, look. Let's rate Deontay Wilder's power. And let's give a detail. I'm talking about true breakdown and look at the criteria. And be fair and be as balanced and unbiased as possible when talking about Deontay Wilder and his punching power. When you compare him to the top punchers in the history of the sport, we're talking about guys like George Foreman, Sonny Liston, Iron Mike Tyson, David Tua, Lennox Lewis. You're talking about guys like Sugar Ray Robinson and Archie Moore and Tommy Hearns. You're talking about guys like Rocky Marciano and Jack Dempsey and Jack Johnson. You're talking about those boys, some of the greatest punchers ever, Julian the Hawk Jackson. You talk about those guys. So when you look at the hardest punchers ever, you got to look at a few things, and I'm talking about criteria. We got to be balanced and unfair across the board. When you're talking about criteria, you got to look at their KO percentage. How many of their victories came by KO? And what I like to do is look at how many men or how many people they knocked out, period. In this case, men, the hardest punchers would be men in the sport. But how many men have they knocked out, period? On top of that, you got to have that little X factor, right? Who did they knock out? And that's the biggest knock against Deontay Wilder. Who he fought, who he knocked out. Most of his resume, a big, huge majority of his resume outside of two fighters, Tyson Fury and Luis Ortiz, have been nobodies, quote unquote. Coffee. I just think you have to be fair and balanced when looking at this, and we're going to definitely have to be steady and keep that criteria the same with everybody. Forget about who we like or dislike. Let's see if Deontay Wilder is the hardest puncher in the history of the sport. I have this book that I look at right here, The Boxing List. Like I said, I tear open this book constantly. And in this book, you have guys, so they have the boxing's biggest punchers. This is on page 43, and I saved this page. And they brought up Jimmy Wild, they brought up Sandy Sadler, they brought up Sonny Liston and Joe Louis and Max Baer, Tommy Hearns and George Foreman, people like Archie Moore, Rocky Marciano, Wilfredo Gomez and Ernie Shavers. Let's talk about Ernie Shavers. Ernie Shavers is often regarded the hardest punching heavyweight of all time. Me, I have George Foreman, but many people say Ernie Shavers. And when they say Ernie Shavers, you kind of look at his knockout percentage, and he has a great knockout percentages in the high 80s, right? Ernie Shavers knocked out many guys. But when you look at that criteria, who did he KO? Let's really put Ernie Shavers' KOs under a microscope. Ernie Shavers, he knocked out Jimmy Ellis. That's a good KO. He knocked out Ken Norton. That's a good KO. But when it came to resistance, like Ron Lau, not only did he not KO Ron Lau, he won. Quarry, he won. Even Randall Tex Cobb, he beat Ernie Shavers. Larry Holmes, Ernie Shavers did knock him down, but Larry Holmes was victorious. And of course, the greatest Muhammad Ali beat Ernie Shavers, but Muhammad Ali said Ernie Shavers hit him the hardest he's ever been hit. And that was including Joe Frazier. That was including, I think it's the hardest puncher heavyweight of all time, George Foreman. So you got to take that into account. But when you look at that criteria, who did they KO? And when you look at Deontay Wilder and say he KO'd nobodies, but we're not consistent here. Let's look at Julian the Hawk Jackson. Julian the Hawk Jackson, many times, people talk about how sick his knockouts were, how much power he had, but who did he knock out? He knocked out Terry Norris. That's a great knockout. Everybody else kind of unheard of. When he went up against resistance, another hard puncher like the G-Man, Gerald McCullen, did Julian the Hawk Jackson knock out the G-Man? No, on the contrary. The G-Man knocked out Julian the Hawk Jackson twice. He also fought the body snatcher, Mike McCullum, the body snatcher, knocked out, TKO'd Julian the Hawk Jackson. So let's be consistent here, but knockout percentage high. Mike Tyson, same way, knockout percentage high, 88%. I mentioned that before. But Mike Tyson, did he knock out everyone? No. 6 of his victories, they survived. They didn't get KO'd, but that's a very small amount of people to survive. Mike Tyson, hard puncher indeed. Who were those guys who survived against Mike Tyson? You have Tony TNT Tucker, Mitch Green. They survived. You have the Bone Crusher Smith. Remember, he survived. And you got James Quick Tillis. He survived against Mike Tyson. Buster Douglas, he beat Mike Tyson. Vander Holyfield, he beat him. Lennox Lewis, he beat him. But that was later on. But in his prime, there were guys. When Mike Tyson was, quote-unquote, custom models Mike Tyson, there were guys who survived against Mike Tyson, indeed. But that doesn't mean that Mike Tyson isn't a devastating puncher. We all know he was. George Foreman, who I think is the hardest hitting heavyweight of all time. Who did he knock out? He knocked out Ken Norton. He knocked out Ron Lyle. He knocked out Joe Frazier twice. And I don't know why people don't mention the rematch. George Foreman, he knocked out Joe Frazier twice. George Foreman, to me, he's one of the hardest hitting punchers of all time. Knocking out Cooney, knocking out Michael Moore. That guy, to me, ranked number one. But he knocked out some good fighters, and he has a high knockout percentage, and he knocked out a lot of fighters. He goes through the list as being, look, one of the more devastating punchers there is. So when you think of hard punchers, when you think of the quantity, how many people they knocked out, to me, the hardest puncher ever, pound for pound, to me, is Archie Moore. Archie Moore, he knocked out 132 men. Sugar Ray Robinson, another guy, knocked out 107 men. You got Tommy Hearns knocking out Pepino Cuevas. He also knocked out Roberto Duran, Tommy Hearns. He even knocked down Sugar Ray Leonard. I don't know why people don't mention that in their second fight, which I think Tommy Hearns, that was a robbery. It was a draw. That was a robbery. Tommy Hearns, he definitely beat Sugar Ray Leonard in the second fight. So when you think of great punchers and you think of the criteria, let's be consistent. Now let's look at Deontay, the bronze bomber Wilder. When you talk about how many people he knocked out, that's 40. Out of the 41 victories, he knocked out 40. What is that, 98%? A high 98%, almost 99%. That's a lot of knockouts there. But here's one criteria. Here's one stat that's extremely important. Everybody he fought, every single fighter he fought, he knocked unconscious. The one guy he didn't beat, Tyson Fury, he knocked him unconscious. He knocked him down. He knocked him down twice. Deontay Wilder also knocked out Luis Ortiz, a man that's only been beaten once. That's good. So let's be consistent with our criteria. When you think of heavy punchers, a lot of those knockout artists, they didn't knock out great fighters every time. Most of their resume is made up of who? Still, great fighters, great punchers. And in that resume, they would have a fighter here and there who were good fighters themselves that they knocked out or that they beat. I'm going to say this about Deontay Wilder. If Deontay Wilder were to take on, if he knock out Ortiz this Saturday, and he takes on Tyson Fury again and knocks him out, if he were to knock out Andy Ruiz, a guy who's never been knocked out before, it would be very hard to say Deontay Wilder isn't top 1, 2. He's on the short list of greatest punchers of all time. Me, I got him ranked number 3, heavyweight, hardest punchers of all time. And I think we have to be fair with the criteria. I know a lot of people don't really like Deontay Wilder that much. I see that. But it's not about who you like or who you don't like. It's about being fair. So if you be fair, if you be consistent, Deontay Wilder is easily one of the hardest punchers of all time. Is he the greatest puncher of all time? We don't know that yet. His career isn't over with. I tell you this, though. There's a lot of heavyweights left, like Dillian Whyte, like Efe Ajagba, like Daniel Dubois. There's guys like Adam Kalinowski. If he knocks those guys out, if he knocks them down, Deontay Wilder, he may end his career being the number 1 hardest puncher of all time. ShowBizz, don't look. I would love to see what you guys got to say in the comments below. Deontay Wilder, being a knockout artist is not easy to do. I'm not sure how many people you guys have knocked out, but knocking a guy out and knowing that the probability of Deontay Wilder going up against a guy in every fight he has, if you're going to bet money, you better bet it on Deontay Wilder, and you better bet it by knockout. Why? Because 100% of the fighters he fought were knocked unconscious. I'm out.